Most men blame their failures on not being talented enough, not smart enough, not gifted enough, not naturally built for success. But here's the part no one wants to admit. Talent is the most overrated thing a man can depend on. It's unstable. It's inconsistent. It disappears the moment life hits you in the mouth. That's why talented men peak early and fall hard. Because talent gave them confidence, but it never gave them discipline. Consistency? That's a different world. Consistency is the man who shows up when he's tired, when he's bored, when he's uninspired, when nobody is watching and nobody cares. Consistency is the man who does the work even on the days he doesn't want to. And that's exactly why he becomes unstoppable. You've met talented men. They impress you for a moment. They shine for a moment. They dominate for a moment. But you know what happens next? They get comfortable. They stop pushing. They rely on potential instead of effort. And then they disappear, forgotten just as fast as they were noticed. Meanwhile, the consistent man, the one who wasn't the loudest, the flashiest, or the most naturally gifted, he kept going. He kept improving. He kept sharpening. And one day, he passes everyone. Not because he was destined for greatness, but because he built greatness brick by brick, day by day, when nobody believed in him. This video isn't about talent. It's about the truth. The men who win are the men who don't stop. Let's get into it. Talent will get you noticed, but it will never make you dangerous. People admire talent because it's shiny, effortless, and rare. But here's the reality nobody wants to face. Talent creates expectations. Consistency creates results. A talented man can impress you today and disappear tomorrow. Because talent is emotional. It depends on mood, inspiration, and momentum. The consistent man doesn't need any of that. He's built from a different substance entirely. Talent is a spark. Consistency is the fire. Most talented men waste their ability because they're addicted to comfort. They rely on being naturally better than everyone else, so they never develop the discipline required to actually become better. They peak fast, then they plateau, then they get overtaken by men they used to laugh at, and they can't even be angry, because the truth is brutal. The man who trains daily will always eclipse the man who only trains when he feels good. Consistency compounds. It turns average into skilled, skilled into exceptional, exceptional into elite. But here's the part that stings the most. Your consistency destroys a talented man's ego, because when you outwork him, he can't blame genetics, destiny, or luck. He has to face the reality that discipline beats his natural advantage. That's why people resent consistent men. They expose everyone else's laziness. They show what's possible when you stop relying on gifts and start relying on grit. The consistent man becomes the one people watch, the one people fear, the one people respect, the one nobody wants to compete with. Because deep down, everyone knows this. You can't out-talent a man who refuses to stop. Talent creates a head start. Consistency determines the finish line. And in the real world, nobody remembers who started fast, only who finished strong. Most men don't struggle with talent. They struggle with showing up. Not once, not twice, but every single day, long after the excitement fades and the motivation disappears. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Men fail at consistency because their identity is built on emotion, not discipline. They do the work when they feel productive. They train when they feel motivated. They chase improvement when life is calm, when the mood is right, when things are perfect. That's why they never grow, because they only move when life gives them permission. A consistent man doesn't need permission. He doesn't wait for a mood. He doesn't negotiate with himself. He doesn't ask, "Do I feel like it today?" He asks one question: "Did I say I would?" And most men can't handle that level of accountability. Not to others, but to themselves. 1. Emotions control them. Weak men allow their emotions to dictate their effort. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm not in the right headspace. I'll start fresh tomorrow. These are not reasons. They're excuses disguised as self-care. Consistency begins the moment you stop treating your feelings like commands. 2. They chase results instead of rhythm. Talented men want fast results. They expect perfection immediately. They want validation quickly. So the second progress slows down, they quit. Consistent men understand something deeper. Progress isn't the reward, consistency is. Because consistency guarantees progress whether the results show today or 6 months from now. 3. They fear the boring work. Discipline is not glamorous. It's repetition. It's routine. It's doing the same thing over and over until it becomes impossible to fail. Most men crave excitement. Strong men crave mastery. They understand the boring work is where greatness is built. The extra reps, the late nights, the early mornings, the uncelebrated effort, the discipline nobody sees. This is where consistent men separate from the talented. 4. They haven't rewritten their identity. A man who sees himself as inconsistent or lazy or the type who always starts and never finishes will always live down to that identity. Why? Because the brain prefers familiar failure over unfamiliar growth. To change your life, you have to change the identity you obey. The consistent man doesn't follow motivation. He follows his standards. He knows. I train because it's who I am. I work because it's who I am. I finish what I start because it's who I am. Consistency isn't a habit. Consistency is an identity, and most men never build it because they're too attached to who they used to be. 5. They quit when nobody is watching. This is the real killer. A talented man trains hard when the room is full. A consistent man trains hard when the room is empty. One seeks admiration. One seeks mastery. One needs an audience. One is building for himself. That's the psychological gap that decides who rises and who stays average. Consistency doesn't just improve your life, it rewires you. It turns you into a man with a presence people feel before you even open your mouth. Because when you show up every day, especially when you don't feel like it, something shifts inside you. You stop seeing yourself as the guy who tries, and you become the guy who executes. That's the transformation talent can't give you. 1. Consistency builds a reputation, even if no one sees you. Work people can sense discipline. They can feel when a man has structure, purpose, routine. Your posture changes, your energy changes, your self-respect rises. You become the man who doesn't flinch under pressure, doesn't fold under emotion, doesn't negotiate with weakness. That kind of man becomes dangerous because he doesn't rely on motivation. He relies on momentum. 2. You become impossible to compete with. A talented man cannot outwork a consistent man, ever. Why? Because consistency turns skill into mastery. It turns doubt into confidence. It turns chaos into order. Every day you show up, you widen the gap. 1 day ahead, 1 week ahead, 1 month ahead, 1 year ahead, by the time a talented man wakes up and decides to start taking things seriously. You're already too far ahead to catch. He's playing catch-up. You're building a legacy. 3. Consistency turns pain into power. A consistent man trains on bad days, works through stress, moves through heartbreak, shows up through uncertainty. You start to realize you can function, not just when life is smooth, but when life is falling apart. That breeds a level of self-trust talent will never give you. Because you've proven to yourself, even at my lowest, I still show up. That's where true power comes from. 4. Your standards rise, and your life rises with them. When consistency becomes identity, you stop tolerating lazy habits, weak circles, excuses, distractions, low-value environments, people who drain your purpose. You naturally upgrade your surroundings because your standards no longer match the old world you came from. You don't force change. You become the change. 5. You become the man others quietly fear and quietly respect. Not because you're loud, not because you're gifted, not because you're lucky, but because you are relentless. A man who refuses to quit becomes a man nobody wants to compete against. A man nobody can predict. A man nobody can break. A man nobody can ignore. Consistency is the great equalizer. It turns average men into leaders. It turns quiet men into threats. It turns overlooked men into icons. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Talent may start the race, but consistency finishes it. If there's one thing you should take from this, it's this. You don't need to be the most gifted man in the room. You need to be the man who refuses to disappear. Talent fades. Motivation fades. Hype fades. But consistency? That's the one thing nobody can take from you. That's the weapon that turns you from potential into a man people have no choice but to respect. So if this video hit you, do your part. Hit the like button so this message reaches more men who need it. Drop a comment and tell me what you're staying consistent with. I read every single one. And subscribe if you're building discipline, identity, and a life that makes talent irrelevant. This is Relentless Man. Stay sharp, stay consistent, and as always, rise above the noise.